Hi, I'm Max Temkin, one of the co-creators of Cards Against Humanity, and this is Tabletop Deathmatch, a competition to find the next great tabletop game. Last year, over 500 people submitted their unpublished games to a panel of expert judges. 16 finalists came to Gen Con to pitch their games in person, and one of those games will win a first printing paid for by Cards Against Humanity and be named the champion of Tabletop Deathmatch.
Hi, my name is Peter Newland, and my game is Wizard Dodgeball. The inspiration for Wizard Dodgeball came from a couple of mechanics I was working with and managed to put a couple of game pieces together and looked at it and said, hey look, it's dodgeball. With actual dodgeball, I played a lot in PE growing up. It was one of my favorite games. I am probably better at real dodgeball than I am at Wizard Dodgeball. I have been working on games for probably 3 or 4 years. The first game I tried to get published, I had and lost a contract for. So I delayed putting that one out because that one is never going to be done because of the rejection. My day-to-day life, I am a controls engineer for an aerospace tooling manufacturing company. And then after that full-time job, I go home and build on my house for my half-time job, which doesn't pay anything. For the most part, I play casual games anymore just because they're easy enough to pick up. You can play quick and you can play after you've had a few drinks. When I heard that I had gotten into the finalists for the deathmatch, very excited, very excited until I heard they were going to film it, and then I was very not excited.
All right, Peter, thank you so much for coming to show us Wizard Dodgeball. Tell us about the game.
All right, so Wizard Dodgeball is a fantasy sport between 2 players who are controlling a team of 5 wizards each in the annual IWDL All-Star game of Wizard Dodgeball. Wizard Dodgeball is just like Dodgeball, except you're also casting performance-enhancing spells on your team and inhibiting spells on the other team. Once players have drafted their team, they're going to pick from a list of league-sanctioned spells based on the makeup of the wizards in their team. So each team starts with equivalent spells, but at that point they're going to have a little bit of choice as to the strategy they want to take. It's a turn-based, so as soon as you lay out your wizards, you play your cards from left to right, and each player takes a turn playing 1 wizard. And this means that if your wizard is eliminated, you're effectively losing a turn. The attacks are all handled dice-based, and it's all a range-based game. So the closer you are to the team, the more dice you're going to roll, the further away, the fewer dice you're going to roll. The defense roll dice as well, just because when I play a lot of RPG games, I hate sitting there hoping that the attacker rolls low enough. So I want to feel like I have a little bit of control of my own fate. The dice mechanic also gives the chance for wizards to block balls being thrown at them if they're holding a ball, and there's a mechanic in there to catch a ball, which will put the attacker out and bring in one of your eliminated teammates back into the game. The spells are handled very similarly to attacking with balls. You're going to roll a couple of dice to attack. Defense will also get a chance to resist the spells. There is the mechanic involved to reflect the spell back at the attacker, so that the attacker then has to defend against their own attack. As soon as you cast a spell, that spell doesn't go back into your hand until the end of that wizard's next turn. So you're taking a chance that, you know, have a good strategy, otherwise your card is gone and that guy is not coming back. My favorite thing about Wizard Dodgeball is that it's anybody's game at any moment. There is some strategy, but since there's the dice roll and you're trying to manage your best chance at attacking and scoring, anybody could take over the game at any time. I've seen people come back from a 4 versus 1 to win the game.
Peter, thanks so much for telling us about the game. One thing that's definitely interesting about this, we got probably one of the most common pitches we got for a game was sort of like an RPG but light, so that, you know, anyone could play it. It was more of like a board game idea.
Right.
This is the only one that made it into the finals, and I think it's just you know, for us, we all saw something in it. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you took inspiration from tabletop, what you think makes Wizard Dodgeball special.
So I've played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, and the one thing that's good and also bad about Dungeons and Dragons or any RPG is your character creation. So for Wizard Dodgeball, I didn't want to have people worry about that, because the whole point of the game is to play dodgeball, not to make your characters. You have a little bit of control about creating your team, but that's it.
What is the drafting mechanic?
The basic drafting mechanic to get people playing is to just deal out 10 wizards, and you just play them as they're dealt. After people get used to the game, the draft is deal out 10 wizards, and then you can rearrange your team, and then after that it's deal out 5 wizards. Player 2 gets to pick a wizard, put another wizard in the pool, player 1 gets to pick a wizard, so on and so forth.
Can you just tell me what exactly you do on your turn?
Each wizard has 2 action points to spend, and with those action points you can move, you can throw a ball, or you can cast a spell, or any combination. So you can move twice, or you can throw 2 balls if you're right next to them. If you are within range of somebody to throw a ball, if you have a ball, you'll throw it at them, or you'll cast a spell at them, or you're going to run and try to get a ball and get it back to your team.
Are players eliminated?
Yes, so if a wizard is hit with the ball, they are taken out of the game, which makes that player lose that turn if it's the next in the initiative order.
Is there a mechanic for getting them back into the game?
If a target rolls doubles, then they catch the ball, and then that takes the attacker out and you can bring in any of your eliminated players in the initiative order that they left off in.
Can we talk about late game a little bit? I mean, does it boil down to, you know, 2 wizards just pointing each other at, toward the end game, where where it's just like my wizard goes, you dodge, your wizard goes, I dodge? Like, does that happen?
It can, but then your spells are refreshing at such a rate that if you've got the right strategy, you're going to try to freeze them and then throw a ball at them.
Did you find during playtests that there was a big component of like where the wizards are placed and formations and things like that?
Not so much. The initial placement is important if your strategy is to start casting spells right off the bat. Other than that, since it's a grid-based and your movement is orthogonal or diagonal, then it's kind of just pans out to whatever you need it to be.
Can we get to the situation where near the end of the game, my opponent has, say, 4 wizards left and I have 1, and basically I'm using him over and over and over again, so when it's my turn, I use my 1 wizard, and then the opponent has to keep moving down their line, but I'm using the same one, is that right?
You would get 1 wizard, and then they would get their 4.
So I'm losing actions.
Correct. You're losing those turns as it would come back.
So my question is, how does that not become a death spiral at the end of the game, where you're basically, like, as soon as I get behind, how am I not forever behind?
Because of the catch mechanic.
But that's random, right?
Well, there is a spell that increases your chances of that, but yes, it is random.
But my opponent might have that spell.
Right, they have the chance to be catching it as well.
If I am on the path to losing, is there anything that my opponent doesn't have that will stop me from being on that path?
That's where it starts representing real life.
Yeah, well, believe me.
I'm also a little concerned about the mechanic of, like, I attack the person who's supposed to go next and you immediately lose a turn, and now I get to go immediately again and attack the person whose initiative is next,
right,
and immediately get to go and immediately get so.
Right, but that also pulls from Dungeons and Dragons. As soon as you know what the initiative is, you start taking out the guys that are coming up next, if you're playing meta.
Yeah,
no,
but that's Dungeons and Dragons.
But that's also not true, right? Because the group initiative on the monster side is different than the initiative on the player side, right? And so is there a point where I can just stop you from ever taking a turn?
Yes, there is. If you freeze your opponent, then the game is it's basically over.
What percentage of games do you think have ended lopsided, with like one person has at least 3 left and the other person's out?
Probably the majority.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for showing us the game. We're going to hang on to your prototype for just a few minutes and discuss it and take a look at it. We're going to kick you out, and thank you again so much for showing us the game. It was great.
Thanks. I've seen some of the judges before, met Mike Selinker at PAX Dev a few times. I have Burning Wheel from Luke Crane, and I've played, of course, Cards Against Humanity.
All right, judges, do you want to come up and take a look at this? So that guy just got a D&D smackdown.
It is kind of the wrong crowd to bring that to.
Well, it wouldn't have been so bad if he wasn't kind of wrong.
Well, and I credit you, Rodney, for not being willing to go after him in the way I was.
Well, you're sort of my interpreter.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a perfect sports simulation, right? I mean, it's like it uses all of the rules that are in dodgeball, and it reminds us why none of us want to play dodgeball. Right? I mean,
yeah,
right.
It's a great simulation of a game that is a death spiral. So.
Right, exactly.
What I want in a sort of a light RPG is I want all of the fun and the companionship and the storytelling and all of the richness of like the fantasy world, minus all of the technical execution and the arguing over rules and the remembering lots of numbers in my head. This is not that. This seems to have a lot of the technicality and the world is very strictly sort of defined.
If you could fix, this is a big if, right? If you could fix the fundamental death spiral mechanic, there might actually be something here, right? Because you could have a sort of light, fun, Ameritrashy, roll some dice competition game, one-on-one competition game. But the fact that you, like, once you start doing poorly, you just get worse. It's a fundamental flaw in the game.
Especially the ones that accelerate the spiral, like, oh, and you just skipped your turn.
Right.
It's not like you can just move on to use another guy. You just skipped your turn.
What do you guys think of the visual design? I think it's actually a really nice looking game and a really good prototype.
Right, I think it is. I think it's early enough that I definitely want to see pictures on here of the people. Yes. But I mean, I love it.
I love the logo. The Wizard Dodgeball logo I think is really strong. And just like looks cool on the table. It's nicely done.
The thing I really like about this game is when I'm on this side of the table, this is what I see, and I see my opponent's guys over there and the balls in the middle, and these are my wizards, like, and then I've got these spells. Like, I feel like that's a wonderful representation of a sports game. I really like just about everything about this game except all the things he said about play.
Yeah. Is it the end game that really makes you worried about?
No, it's the fact that once you start winning, you can just continue winning.
Eli asked, is it important how you position your guys and move them in formations? And he said, no, it's just, unless you're trying to set yourself up for an opening move, it's not very important. But to me, that's like, if you're going to give me a tabletop RPG with a grid, make it important how I have my guys flanked and supporting each other.
This rulebook is kind of a mess. I mean, I don't want to be too harsh of a judge for someone that early, but there's some serious rules writing that needs to happen in order for me to actually be able to understand how to play this game.
Retail folks, do you guys think that I mean, it's a two-player game. It has sort of a sports theme to it, a fantasy theme to it.
I mean, there's sort of levels that you could produce this at. Obviously like, let's say he does the chits that he does right now, and you have pictures of the individual wizards. That's one thing. If you up the budget of that and you have like little minis and stuff, then that's an easy sell, because it's like Wizard Dodgeball, it's wizards casting spells, playing this sweet game, and look, there's all these like little cool components, and I mean that'll sell really easily, despite the fact that there might be a mechanical problem.
My problem is that a light fun game called Wizard Dodgeball would sell, but those cards all have 6 numbers on them, so it's not that light fun game to me.
Yeah, I mean there's a thematic element, right, where they all have funny little names like Jazzle Dirty Bottoms and stuff like that. Like, and then I look around that, and what I see is just an array of stats.
Yeah, I have to say, I was surprised when he said that what you roll is based on range. I kind of just assumed it was going to be like, he's 4 squares away, so you're rolling 4 dice or something like that.
Right.
And then, but it looks like each wizard has a different range stat, and there's a different range stat for throwing the ball versus casting a spell, and then there's a dodge stat and a magic stat, and so, like, some other attack stat, I think. So I was really kind of surprised that there was that much statistics in each wizard.
When I took a look at those rules and I took a look at those cards, as a casual gamer, I was intimidated.
You do have a choice at all times of the 8 spells to cast and which piece to move.
But when he said it took 2 cards, it kind of makes sense, because once you actually get into the gameplay, it just doesn't seem as complex as some of those games that are out there. So to me, I felt like if I want to be challenged a little, I'd be willing to go for it.
Cherry, do you have any thoughts on manufacturing this? And also, could you talk if they did want to go in the direction of minis, is that something that could be done with the budget we have?
They could go in the direction of minis. I can't say right now whether or not the budget would afford that until we saw what the minis look like, because we'd have to price the molds. But the way it is, it's a very affordable game, and it's pretty easy to produce, and he's got beautiful art.
Cool. All right, well, I think we got to bring in the next game.
If Wizard Dodgeball does not succeed at the deathmatch, I've started rolling out new art. I'm going to get the revised rules out very soon with the print and play. Kind of looking into doing a Kickstarter, getting some few quotes, but still dragging my feet because I've made the game and now I want to continue moving on.